So Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis sat down for an interview with Rachel Maddow, and she talked a lot about the threats that she's faced since prosecuting Trump. And that seems to be an ongoing theme with these prosecutors and anyone who steps out of line or crosses Donald Trump. And folks, as we get closer and closer to this election, I say to myself, is there any chance in hell that things will get better? I can't see it. I don't mean to be a pessimist. I really don't, but I just feel like that this carnival of chaos is only going to get more chaotic as we go into November. And it's a good thing I got my good friend D Knight here to help me stay sane and help me cover it all, because there is so much to unpack. And folks, if you haven't already, go over and check out his YouTube channel. It is Pardon the Insurrection Podcast. D, take it away.
Yo, what up? This is D Knight for the Pardon the Insurrection Podcast, coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee, courtesy of Mr. Tennessee Brando. Let's go ahead and give it up for your mans for breaking the internet with his B6 rendition that totally destroyed Marjorie Taylor Greene. That was fantastic work. Kudos to you, sir. And if you're watching this video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you haven't done that already. Otherwise, I'm going to think you're a Marjorie Taylor Greene fan, and you don't want that to happen. So Rachel Maddow on her show yesterday gave us quite the history lesson revolving around some circumstances in the 1930s where multiple members of Congress and elected U.S. officials were being investigated for their ties to Nazi propagandists and how they used the powers of their office to interfere with those investigations to such a degree that they managed to escape those investigations without any convictions. And she tied that to parallels that we're seeing today with Republicans in power abusing their office to interfere in investigations that could tie them directly to Donald Trump in his multiple indictments. And, you know, look, there's so many parallels. I mean, for starters, you know, Trump quoting Hitler here lately, referring to immigrants as vermin, disgusting as that is. Even as recent as Monday evening, reposting on Truth Social, or Untruth Social, as I like to refer to it, a video where there were allusions being made to Trump wanting to create a unified Reich should he be reelected in 2024. That's fucking horrifying. I don't want to see that come to pass. But also, just like the Nazi co-conspirators then, Trump's co-conspirators now are engaging in similar tactics, although some of the parallels are too spooky. For instance, Trump quoting Hitler numerous times and referring to immigrants as vermin, and an incident as recent as Monday where on True Social he reposted a video alluding to Trump establishing a unified Reich in 2024. That's horrifying. But Republicans are attacking any instance of prosecutors attempting to hold Trump accountable for his numerous crimes, including his current trial here in New York, where it appears that he's losing after a defense witness, his lone defense witness, blew up on the stand in spectacular fashion, likely ruining his chances of escaping that without a conviction. Also attacking the civil fraud trial recently and the E. Jean Carroll rape defamation case, and special counsel Jack Smith. I guess you guys are starting to sense a pattern here. And things are no different with the Fulton County investigation, where there have been numerous attacks on Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis trying to hold Trump accountable for overturning the 2020 election. I mean, look, we all heard that video where Trump asked for 11,780 votes. There had to be an investigation. So, of course, it's not surprising that there ended up being charges. But Rachel Maddow had Fonnie Willis on her show last night to give a bit of her perspective on the unfolding of some of these events.
I saw footage last week at an event honoring the South Fulton police. You got a little bit emotional, thanking the police for having kept you safe in what has been a remarkably threatening environment for you. I wondered what effect the sort of constant threat of violence that you've been living with has had on you and on your ability to do your work.
Thank you for asking. Not many people ask about what is the personal journey. that's been going on. And it really hasn't been happening in the last year. It's been happening since about a month after I took office. From the time I took office, I began to get threats. Those threats come in the way of emails. Those threats come in the way of phone calls, text messages, any which way you can imagine. At some point, the threats became where I had to leave my home. And I've been out of my home since the first year in office. They've come from a variety of sources, but the threats have certainly been about lots of different kinds of cases that I've prosecuted. People are very unhappy with them because of some recent cases that most of them are racial in nature. It has cost me to leave my home financially. I'm paying for, my mortgage because I refuse to give up the home where I raise my children, but also paying for another establishment. And I have 24-hour really protection around me. So it's a very interesting way to live, but it's well worth it. To have the honor of being the first female district attorney in Fulton County, it pales in comparison to what my victims are going through.
I'm sure it's no accident that the focused attacks by elected Republican officials have resulted in actual threats from your average Trump supporter. It's not surprising, and I'm sure that that was the intent. Also, it's unfortunate that she's had to even leave her home in order to do her job, but that's the set of circumstances we're facing, I guess. Kudos to Fonnie Willis for being able to weather that situation. But she was also asked by Rachel Maddow about how the situation and the high-profile nature of prosecuting Donald Trump has changed her for better or worse.
But I can't explain to you how much I love the work that I do. I can't explain to you how loved I feel by my community. You really should feel sorry for those that are trying to deter me from my work. It doesn't do anything but motivate me to continue to work and to work hard. And so I'm not someone that's going to be broken, but certainly it has caused me to get thicker skin or to be more resilient, to dig deeper, to work harder. But what it has not done is deter me from my work.
And we've all seen numerous reports of investigations being delayed or deterred out of fear of retaliation by Republicans and Trump, or, possibly more nefarious motives. But it's just unfortunate that the onus is on a local prosecutor to step up to the plate and hold a former president accountable for attempting to overturn the election in her state. But that's the state of affairs that we're dealing with. It is what it is. But, she's stepping up to the plate. She says she is undeterred, and you have to commend her for her just ability to manage the unique set of circumstances that she's facing. But look, it's not just federal elected officials that are trying to interfere in her investigation. It's also state officials who seem to be taking the same tact as Matt Gaetz and other Republicans in Congress.
But Governor Barnes, as far as I understand it, has since offered that if the Republican-controlled legislature in Georgia comes after you with this new investigative committee that they seem to have formed specifically to come after you, with some of the other ways that they seem to be targeting you, that if you need legal representation of a specialty form as part of the way they're coming after you through the legislature, that he will represent you.
No, Governor Barnes is my attorney. They have decided in Georgia that they would like to come over after me. They use false reasons for wanting to come after me. I don't know if you remember, and I believe we talked about it last time. Georgia had never had a prosecutorial oversight committee, and all of a sudden, 14 minorities were elected to office to serve as district attorney. And now all of a sudden they need an oversight committee to look after district attorneys because they want to tell us how to prosecute and who to prosecute and where we should put our resources, as opposed to allowing the voters that put us in these seats to make those determinations.
Obviously, with a black woman holding Trump accountable, we weren't going to be able to escape racism here. And again, this isn't 100% about protecting Trump. It's also about this idea of entrenched white power not being comfortable with minorities being able to police themselves. But again, Fonnie Willis had more to say in that regard.
What is so ironic is although it's only 14 of the 50 DAs in the state of Georgia, most of the citizens report to our jurisdictions. So although we're smaller in number than the other 36, most of the population has elected these minority DAs to serve them and has trusted their judgment. But apparently we now need daddy to tell us how to do our job.
Again, more allusions to the fact that you can't expect a bunch of conservative white men to be comfortable with not only a black person enforcing the law in a majority black community, but you damn sure can't expect them to be comfortable with a black woman doing the job, no matter how well she does it. But also, Fonnie Willis did comment on the idea of state elected officials acting as Trump's kangaroo court in attempting to interfere with credible charges in this particular instance.
Ms. Willis, I was interested to see in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution today, there were 3 Democratic state senators who published an opinion piece saying, quote, "We are witnessing a concerted effort by Trump and MAGA Republican politicians to cast doubt on the legitimate and strong Fulton County election interference case by attacking the prosecutor. It's an effort that takes advantage of every avenue of government power to which Trump's allies have access. Their goal, delay accountability for Trump's alleged attempt to illegally overturn a presidential election." This strikes me very close to my heart because I feel like this is one of the first times I've seen people standing up for you on this point. I wanted to ask how it strikes you. Do you agree with their assessment of what's going on?
Well, as you know, let's start with the federal government and Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan has time after time after time attacked my office with no legitimate purpose. Anyone who knows Jim Jordan's history knows that he only has the purpose of trying to interfere in a criminal investigation. He has now turned his tricks to he's going to look at grant programs, which I invite him to do, and we have complied with his subpoenas, but yet he continues his attacks to try to interfere in a criminal investigation. And not one time has he used his position to try to investigate people who are attacking me and attacking others legitimately doing their jobs, making him illegitimate in his position, and it's disgusting. And so I bring that up at the federal level because now at the state level, they've decided to follow this clown's lead. And they want to now try to interfere in an investigation, and it's not legitimate either.
If you just stop and think about it for a second, with the numerous death threats directed against this woman, like including here recently, a California man was indicted for threatening to kill her like a dog. The fact that none of these elected Republicans have investigated those issues shows you how much of a sham this all is. And it's all designed to protect Trump and the Republican Party politically. But Fonnie Willis does go on to explain and elaborate on how opposition to her is also a political sham and what needs to happen for us to continue to live in a free society.
And so it shall fail, and it's not going to go anywhere. But they are trying to attack me at every level. As you know, today is an exciting day for me because I'm on a ballot tomorrow, and I have a Democratic challenger, and I plan to win and win big tomorrow. But I also have a Republican challenger coming up in November who's unqualified, been practicing law for less than 4 years, has never practiced criminal law, but has already got PACs supporting her, already has the National the National Republican Party, as well as the local Republican Party supporting her. And so I am thankful to those 3 Democrats who stood up for what is right. But I am at a point where I need Fulton County voters to get out and vote. I need people around the country to support me, big and small, to say that we are going to be a country that still believes in the rule of law. We are not going to allow people to be attacked while they do their job. Having prosecutors that are free from interference and are allowed to just look at cases, look at the facts, and if people broke the law to bring charges, has to go on for us to live in a free society.
A bigger point I'd like to make from a personal experience, and if you bear with me just a moment, I'll give you a personal anecdote from an experience in 2020 where the Secret Service paid me a visit over a tweet I made suggesting that I was excited to smoke the Trump administration in November of 2020, which, if you're familiar with my work on Twitter, was an allusion to changing my screen name. Yet the Secret Service paid me a visit anyway. Don't worry. It turned out fine. They even offered me a job, but that's a story for another day. But that experience it did leave some doubts in my head about what I was willing and unwilling to say online for fear of retaliation by the Trump administration, especially after the events on January 6th, where it was clearly an attempt to overthrow our democracy and end the transition of power. But, I was hesitant about calling it what it was, a coup. But I did so anyway, because, at some point it is on us to step up and do our job and use our voice to protect the people that are trying to hold these people accountable, the people who are doing their best to overthrow our democracy and destroy our government. It's our responsibility to do that. And if we're not willing to do that, to protect our democracy, then we don't deserve our democracy. Because these people are putting themselves at risk of harm, at risk of life and limb, risk of political violence, threats, harassment, so on and so forth. And if we're not willing to subject ourselves to some of those same attacks, then we don't deserve the democracy that we have. Luckily, in the instance of Fonnie Willis, she's a stand-up figure that we should all sit our admiration and support to. And I'll just let her close us out on that.
The sad part, though, for all of them, Ms. Maddow, is it doesn't matter how many times they attack me. I am not going to be broken, and I am going to still be standing here doing my job lawfully.
Girl, same. Hope you all found some inspiration from that strong black woman, because she ain't taking no shit, and neither am I. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and also hit the thumbs up button. It helps out the algorithm. And please feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you could, follow me on my personal podcast, Pardon the Insurrection, available everywhere podcasts are found, and also on YouTube.